The following program is an abridged audio version of the streaming video talk show A Wonderful Chaos. The hosts are Andy Chaliff and Bambos Demetriou. The format is entirely casual, unscripted conversation. If you'd like to watch a live taping or participate with your comments in real time, subscribe to A Wonderful Chaos on YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, or Twitch.
Don't expect the person you married to stay the person that she was. You're a fool if that. I mean, you're killing her. I would coach you on getting clear on what it is that you want. That's the source of what I don't want. I mean, it's the same thing. What did Michelangelo say about carving a lion's head out of stone? You just chip away the part that's not lion. So you're chipping away the parts that aren't the woman. Or the relationship that you desire, but somewhere in there you've got to know what that is because you're the sculptor.
It's a wonderful chaos. You can play random, messy and glorious, solo or tandem. We work to find rest and fight to find peace, both head and the heart, like a nephew and niece. What are we doing here?
You mean listening to this show?
Where the more that you learn is the less that you know. Where the wounded are healed
and the atheists pray.
It's a wonderful chaos, and we like it that way. It's a wonderful chaos, and we like it that way. It's a wonderful chaos, and we like it that way. It's a wonderful
chaos, and we like it
for 11 more
way.
Seconds, Andy.
It's a wonderful chaos.
11 more seconds,
like
Andy.
it that way. Daylight savings. It's such a motherfucker.
What?
So every year at this time, my whole life goes into turmoil.
Oh, yeah.
Because I book appointments with people in the U.S., but when we go on daylight savings, they don't. So it's now a 5-hour difference instead of a 6-hour difference in the East Coast. So all of my bookings get backwards because it's like, and then at some magical moment, it goes back to 6 again. So we're not synced up on daylight savings with the U.S., so everything gets confused. But that's not important, Bambos. What's important today, Bambos? Kris Girrell, one of our favorite guests, is back on the show.
Third time's
a charm. We're going to discuss his book, which was released exactly 10 years ago.
A Married Man's Guide to Marriage.
On Amazon.
Reached the top 50.
Reached the top 50. And we're going to do that where, Bambos?
On A Wonderful Chaos.
And we like it that way. So, Kris Girrell, we actually said to Kris, let's just find a reason to have you back on.
Yeah, we like it that way.
and you know what I like? I like when getting back to our audio engineer, Cass. I mean, he had his own very successful podcast, Everyone's Agnostic. He says to me every so often, I really enjoy those guests because he has to listen to the show for an hour and edit it. So he really has enjoyed Chris's shows. So it's really nice because we actually give Cass an opportunity to edit, an audio version that he's going to enjoy as well.
Yeah.
Shout out to Cass there. And I believe the topics we've already gone through with, just to recap a little bit for people who might want to watch shows that we've already done with Kris Girrell. We did, the first show was Dark Night of the Soul. which was possibly one of our best
podcasts,
which no one wanted to watch because who the hell, they're living it on a daily basis. Why do I want to at all listen to Dark Night of the Soul? It's just recapping my life at the moment.
It's like Batman, but without the killing.
And then we had his second shot was we kind of capitalized on his TED Talk, which has some 1 million+ video views of some sort, which was all about him talking about the periodic table of emotions.
That was brilliant.
It was very good. For those who haven't seen either that episode or it was about emotional intelligence, that was the second show. So basically, I said, hey, Kris, what are we going to do the third show? And he says, I just happen to have a book, which was called A Married Man's Survival Guide that he wrote 10 years ago. And I said, that sounds like a great excuse.
Let's dig into what happened before you started writing that book, Kris.
Exactly. I want to hear. You know what the funny thing is?
I was suffering, arguing.
Yes, exactly. We've often talked about the about how when people come out of the back end of any experience, all of a sudden they become a master.
And they write a book.
And then you write a book, and then like you don't get to live the horror of when it wasn't working. So it's so funny because it's, you know, just because someone has written a book doesn't mean that they've done it any better than anyone else has done it in their lives. They just put the time and energy into to write about it.
Yeah. And actually, Kris Girrell actually did impact my life. Like on the emotional intelligence one, I came to grips that I have a high level of emotional intelligence. And from that show, I stopped fighting it.
Yeah.
And being it.
I remember that, actually. That was a really beautiful. We actually talked after the show as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if I recall, what I took away from that was that we had discussions when you were young that you were often told that your way of learning and experience the world was wrong. And you never had the opposite, which was that, wow, the way I was experiencing was just perfect. It's just no one else could see it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have some comments. JC Barnett says, easier to look up with show notes.
Thanks, JC. We'll reference. We'll have the secretary come to you back and give you the Dark Night of the Soul show and the Emotional Intelligence show. We'll come back. We'll put that
actually
in the notes.
If you just go to the search engine on Spotify or YouTube,
any of the things, yeah.
A Wonderful Chaos, A Dark Night of the Soul, it will come up.
It is JC. Remember how hard it was for us to get him online? So, you know, we'll give you the numbers, JC. I'll send them to you later.
I thought I was wearing your hat today, JC.
No, you're not,
Sorry.
JC. He's not has your hat on today.
And Candice says, I'm excited to hear from Kris. I'm a big fan.
Nice.
So shall we bring him on?
Yeah, of course. If Candice says that she's a big fan, then we might as well have the other big fans here as well.
So, God, I'm sweating now.
Nice. Candice, I hope she knows you, because that would be even incredible if she didn't know you had a big fan.
Actually, Candice and I are writing a book right now. And,
nice.
And we already have eyes on a second book. So we're writing a book about transformation. And we have a delightful title called Typhoon Honey. And we're not going to tell you why we named it that. Yeah. So you have to figure it out.
It sounds like a song they might have in the musical South Pacific.
Yeah,
but
right.
that wouldn't reference for Bambos. Show tunes and Bambos don't mix, unfortunately. No. So sorry about that.
Hi guys.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Should we go for the big kill now?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
By the way, you say 71 years old?
Yeah.
So that means you wrote this book at 61.
Yes.
Could you have written this book at 51?
That's a good question.
I don't think so. Because at 51, I had 10 years of marriage under my belt, and I had failed 2 marriages before, one of 3 years and one of 10 years. And then, kind of like spent a time single and dating and stuff and trying to figure out, yes, I really am a relationships kind of person. I define myself in relationship. And I'm, as my gay friends say, I'm incorrigibly heterosexual. So,
by the way, when you say that, just to kind of go back to the wording you used, you said, I failed. Would you say that's true? Or would you just say colloquially you said that? Probably
half and half. So one of them, I got to own all of it, So in the first marriage, maybe I just wasn't showing up as the person that she married. And so she found another lover and kind of left.
Okay.
And so where was I not showing up as the, the man that she married? And in the second case, it was a dysfunctional marriage. I was married to an adult child of an alcoholic who, when up is down, down is up, and things aren't what So I bring home flowers, and she say, "What'd you do wrong?" And I was like, "Wait, what? That doesn't match." It's so it was very screwy, and so I was the one that went out and trying to find solace somewhere else, and that didn't work. That exploded.
When you say you were trying to find. Were you trying to find it? I mean, we're jumping really fast, but I'm just because you stated so many things. Were you trying to find it while staying in relationship with her, or did you need to go away from the relationship?
No, I was trying to find it while I was in relationship with her, and that just doesn't work in the Court of Appeals or whatever.
No, that's really hard. I mean, that's we haven't done a show on that yet, but that would be
an affair.
No. The show would be changing yourself while in relationship. Because I found that when two people are together and one of them is trying to redefine who they are, then the other obviously has projections on them. So in that often can create a strange dynamic.
So we have 2 shows for you, Kris.
No, but I think that's a real good point. We're always changing. And if you get into a marriage or into a relationship, any kind of relationship where you're like with a person that doesn't accommodate for or allow for the other person's growth and development. So like you want to keep her the pretty little princess that you married, or you want to keep her this or that, and she's growing and flowering and turning into this powerful woman, and that's not who you married. Like that's really disturbing to the other partner.
So Kris, who were you in your first marriages, and who was the guy that stepped into the last marriage?
Oh, well, I think I'm always Kris. How was I?
Well, I would then say, what kind of baggage did you let go to be in the last marriage?
Yeah,
you're still in it, right?
Yeah. So the first one, like the baggage I let go of was naivete. I grew up in rural and went to college to get out of the place that I was in. Because it just was it's a place that kills people with black lung and chainsaws. And I mean, it's like the 2 industries of my hometown are logging and mining. Wow. And so like I just needed to get away. So I went to college and I fell in love, and I thought good sex meant you should get married, and so we did, and that was all we had. So it was kind of a naive way to be, and so that didn't hold the weight of itself. And so then I spent, some years, single and ended up, rescuing a damsel in distress. And so when the damsel doesn't need to be rescued anymore, what do you do with that kind of thing? So I kind of was, what I was doing the whole time was growing into this man. And we grow 2 ways. We grow by addition and we grow by subtraction. And the things that got subtracted away were what, brought me to where I am here, and in this relationship. And so the work I had to do, like once I, hit the bottom after that divorce, and I was like, my life is a total train wreck. I mean, like, look at disaster areas, like, rubble all around me. It looked like Hoboken back in the 60s or so. It's just like just rubble. And I go like, that's not who I am. There's something inside me said, that's not who I am. And so I started defining, who am I? Wow. In defining that, I was on a path that kind of wove together with another person. And eventually we sort of say, yeah, that's the kind of relationship I want to be in. So that's how we did it. So we said, yeah, let's be in that relationship.
Yesterday's show, we had an interesting discussion, which was that Bambos is really looking for women that aren't like anyone that he's dated before, where he knew it didn't work out, which is really healthy, of course.
Yeah. But, knowing what you don't want is because of knowing what you do want. I mean, all you have to do is turn around 180 degrees and, I don't want this. So what's that back there that it is saying that's causing me to say that's not what I want? I'm this.
So what you don't want is what you've just described of, I don't want these qualities in a relationship I'm going to have. And what I do want is, if I turn around, this is what I aspire to have in my relationship.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can't say I feel bad because I did something if you don't know what good or moral or ethic or your standard is. It wouldn't feel bad. Right? You can't say, I don't want those sort of characteristics if you don't know what it is somewhere deep inside you. You don't know what it is that you are standing for. So it's that sense of self that informs the what I don't want. No, that's not it. No, that's not it. So I'm married to a woman who can tell you what she doesn't want. Like if I want to ask her, like, what do you want? She says, I know what it's not. Show me one. No, that's not it. Show me another. That's not it. Oh, that's it. So that's how I buy her presents. I go like, I can't buy her a present. I have to take her shopping. Like, do you like this? Do you like that? Do you like? And over the close to 30 years now, we're on 29. Over the time, I've kind of narrowed the window down, so I actually could probably venture out on a limb and buy her a present. But I don't want to do that. It's just
why take the risk?
And she has fun shopping with me. So all right, let me take you shopping. Like we'll book a trip to New York and we'll just go on Fifth Avenue. It's like, all right, I got $1,000 in my pocket. Let's go. And I'll take her. Like, let's do something fun. We'll go and we'll do theater. We'll go shopping. We'll stay in a hotel, and it's like fun, and it works. So why violate that?
Is this in your manual, by the way?
I don't remember if that's part of it.
That was 10 years ago.
It was 10 years ago, so I don't know that it's part of the book. What is in the book is what we are talking about, which was, don't expect the person you married to stay the person, that she was. Like you're a fool if that. I mean, you're killing her, not allowing that person to grow.
Right? Yeah, you're both evolving.
You hopefully you're evolving. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know a lot of men who are still, Neanderthal, knuckle draggers, we call it, like they're ours, they're our men, they're part of our teams, and we have a concept in men's work called he's ours. and like, every men's group, you get together for the football game or something like that. Everybody's supposed to bring something for the party, chips or dip or whatever, like the one guy forgets, he's ours.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody, everybody's talking about their kids and, how good they are and stuff like that. And he always has to best you, because his kids are always better than yours. Yeah. He's ours, so everybody has one of them. He's ours. Yeah. So everybody has Neanderthal. We all know one. And they just don't evolve. They are what they are, and like that. There's no changing that, and that's not bad. It's just who that man is.
I want to go back to this point because I think it's really interesting about the dynamic between. So let's say, for instance, if anything, what do you think is the quality or the challenge one would have if they don't have this is what I want? So if they're clear on what they don't want, but they're not clear on what they want, then what do you think the challenges could be for that person?
Well, how long are you willing to experiment? Is the challenge. I would coach you on getting clear on what it is that you want. That's the source of what I don't want. I mean, it's the same thing. What did Michelangelo say about carving a lion's head out of stone? You just chip away the part that's not lion.
Yeah.
And so you're chipping away the parts that aren't the woman or the relationship that you desire, but somewhere in there you got to know what that is because you're the sculptor.
It's beautiful. I'm chipping away the parts that aren't lion. It reminds me of the Marilyn Monroe when she used to put on all of her jewelry and just take off one piece by piece until she said, "And now it's perfect."
I never heard that. That's great.
You have a question from Candace. What guidance do you have for the wife when the married man refuses to grow in specific aspects of life? Any coaching? Well, Candace, You're not going to get him to do the dishes or pick clothes up from the floor. I can guarantee you of that. Just ask my wife.
So the first answer is I can't get my wife to do or grow in any way that I want her to grow in. She has to grow in the direction that she wants to grow in. And, the husband, of any wife who, like we always hear from women who, and by the way, the people who bought Married Man's Survival Guide, we wrote it by men, for men, in men's language. And guess who bought it?
Women.
Not men.
Yeah.
To understand men.
No, because they bought it for their husband and say, you need to read this.
Oh, fuck.
Because if I had $1 for every man who came to me and Dave and said, I thought everything was going fine until she handed me divorce papers.
Yeah.
And like, we'd be a lot richer, but so like men don't get it. A lot of times as we think that relationship is sitting side by side, at a fishing pool, drowning worms and not talking. and that's bonding, or watching a football game, or or whatever. That's bonding. So I think the answer is, we can't get another person to be the person we want them to be. We have to let them be the person they're destined to be, or they're evolving to be. And that might take this route instead of that route, or straight ahead.
But let's go on this for a moment, because this is where the fun challenge comes in for me with, like, if we had a criteria, like things I don't like, things that would be nice to change, and things that must change if we're going to have a future together. Mm-hmm. So, like, if you kind of boiled it down into these categories, how would you say you address the ones that are, if this doesn't change, our relationship will come to an end, and stay in relationship?
Well, that's a heart-to-heart conversation, isn't it? I mean, we got to sit down, and if you don't have that going in, let's say you don't have that going into the relationship, you haven't articulated what are your non-negotiables. And by the way, your non-negotiable list should be very, 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 very small. Like, I won't kill somebody. Mm-hmm. Even if she asks me to, I won't do that, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, so I have a short list of non-negotiables. Everything else, one of the things.
What are your non-negotiables?
I won't kill somebody.
That's one. Give me another one.
I have to be able to pursue my dreams, or I'll die. Okay. And I'm fortunate to be married to a woman who just says, go do, go. And she gets excited by watching me do that so like, it's fun for her to let go.
Beautiful.
And I think those are, like, everything else. One of the principles of the Married Man Survival Guide is we went out and we interviewed men who had been married monogamously to the same person for 35 years or more. That was our criterion level, because we were at 20 and 21 years or something like that at the time we wrote the book.
Okay.
And so we went for, like, out there. We figured 35 years is good. We interviewed men from 35 to, I think, 67 years was the highest we had. And we asked them one question: what's your secret? Like, you're a guy. We understand guys. Like that part we're clear. How did you make it last? What's your secret? And the number one answer that most of them said is say yes to everything except for the non-negotiables. Everything else doesn't matter. Is it worth getting in? Like, we're competitors. Men are competitors. Yeah. We will compete with ourselves. Like throwing away a piece of paper, we'll, like, crumple up in a basketball and, like, make a shot, like competition, right? Mm-hmm. It's not throwing away a piece of paper, it's competing. So we don't want to compete with our spouse, with our partners. There's nothing worth competing over, so let it go. If you're in a relationship, say yes. What's going to hurt you?
The challenge that I see often is that if the values aren't shared in a relationship, then they crop up over and over again.
I think that's, kind of the coming together part, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like,
and how do you negotiate that actually?
Yeah. But let's say you're in the courtship process, right? Now, there's some part of, we talk about the four styles of man as cavemen, in the book, and right in the front, we have a chapter, for women who want to read this book, and we talk about the 4 types of cavemen. Because when we were writing it, there was a one-man show called Defending the Caveman on Broadway, and it was just a delight. But so in the courtship process, if you're not talking about what's important to her and what's important to you, and like in that kind of the interviewing stage when you go out on dates and you're like, oh, so what else do you like? What else do you like? And if you're not hearing the signals because you're blinded by the heat-seeking missile that lives between your legs, like you can be blinded because your little head's doing all the thinking. And I'm not being crass about that. There are a lot of men who get in relationships because, just sex feels wonderful. Yeah. Sex is good. It's beautiful. It's, for men, orgasm is, I think David Data, who's a men's writer, says, sex is like a death rebirth. We're totally spent, so we have this death rebirth spiritual experience in orgasm, so many men confuse that with nirvana, with like, this is the be all and end all. That's not the interview process. The interview process really is all those questions that you're talking about. Like, what's real important to you? What do you like?
Yeah.
So
I think that I noticed for me not to be driven by my penis, it took me to my 40s.
Yeah.
I think before 40, I wasn't able to distinguish. Like, it was like I was getting false positives, right? Because I was seeing what I wasn't seeing what was there. I was seeing what I wanted to see.
Yes. Yeah. Great way of saying it, false positives. And by the way, that's how old I was when I met Sarah.
Yeah.
So it took me a lot of trial and error, and a lot of error in that to really realize that, yes, but no but yes, like there's a lot of experimenting in trying to find out where we align on those values, those core values.
Mm-hmm. Like I've been dating quite a lot and having video calls with women. I just allow myself to bring all myself into the conversation. So whether it's my playful side or a part of me which is really intense, being fully connected to how I'm feeling in the moment. Oh, there's a contraction there. What happened there? And not making it a big deal, but also finding ways to even bring that into the conversation and see how, like, just put it in and see how we connect on that and find each other. And I guess that's why I've been single for quite a long time, because I'm really taking my time with this process. And in the past, in terms of patterns, I always went for women who had daddy issues, or I would be the savior. And I have seen that I've said no to that. So it's always one of my questions, and women are like, why would you even ask that? Like no one even asked me that. I'm like, well, this is my experience so far.
Right. Yeah. So coaching, don't ask that question. But I have a question for you though. How do you, I'm looking over here because that's where you are on my screen. So how do you, my experience of you is you live in the visceral sense. You live in your body and you experience everything emotionally and physically through your body, which I just like. That's what I said before. It's like, it's so admirable. I don't have that as much of that capacity. How do you distinguish between the visceral sense of your sexuality and the emotional sense of that, feeling that you have, that gut feeling you have as you're experiencing a relationship that, is meeting or plugging into the contact points in the right way? How do you...
Can you rephrase the question?
Well, yeah. So, all right. So I'll put it personally, so like my physical being has always been an experience, and this blended with sexuality. And so like, I didn't distinguish because I'm a head person and I live up here so much. When I went into my body, and it said that men access intimacy through sexuality, women access sexuality through intimacy. So my access of my intimacy and my, my relationship skills have always been through that sexual channel. It isn't anymore, but it's that's kind of where I accessed intimacy. So as I project myself into like your being, where you're such an experiencer. Like you have it must be like a dog's nose, with all the scents that a dog can smell so loudly, you experience through your whole beingness, how do you distinguish that I'm not just being, like Andy said, driven by my penis, like how do you separate that? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And well, it makes sense, but I just have a reference of how I feel when I'm with a woman. And I'll even play it out. Can I be in my full dominance, and can I be in my full surrender with a certain individual?
Yeah.
And is there an openness to play in that space? And in general, like I have to say, my body contracts if I like I've had an experience recently, a few months ago, where I met a woman. She came to my house. We had a really beautiful connection, and she was completely my type. My body was like, "Fuck yeah."
Yeah.
Like, great.
Yeah.
And during the course of the evening, I saw that there was something in me, like, there's something like not completely right here. And I kept on asking. I don't remember what I was asking.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't even thinking what I was asking. But
I think I remember, by the way, you told me it was the relationship with a former boyfriend.
Yeah, she still had feelings for her ex. And in that moment, everything was, everything was great, and there was this point in me, and eventually it came out that was very much alive for her. So it's a curse, but it's also a blessing in a way that.
So your ability to experience the wholeness of your experience, and allow yourself to be able to notice the contraction. Like you said, there's something that recoiled or retracted in that, where many of us who are not as attached or not attached, but I mean plugged into our viscera in our sensory systems, would not be attuned to that subtlety. That you're able to say, "Oop, that violated one of my core principles," and so you haven't necessarily articulated what this is, that is the opposite of, but your body does it, and like, because you're such an emotionally aware person, you're able to notice in yourself. I think the first step of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. You are like the master in that, and so you're able to like sense that subtle shift inside your own body.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is if you're fishing in water, you don't even realize that water exists. So this is Bambos's water. Is just, I react to things going on around me, which I clearly know aren't feeling right. I can't necessarily say in the moment what they are, but I know they don't feel right. And then I allow it to unfold. And I think part of my life, probably where I've evolved, because I have a similar, call it trigger reaction, is I have a lot of spaciousness to feel. And I've just learned tools and tricks to let it unfold in a way that it doesn't necessarily become personal or too personal. Like, it's not rejecting you. It's not me. It's more like something, I don't know what it is, something not feeling right. And I have to allow that to evolve a little bit. It's just, it's softer, and you've become softer. But at first you were really harsh when we'd have the discussions, years, you were talking years ago now.
I mean, our journey together has really, if anything, has really helped me to stop thinking that my way is the right way.
We're talking about two different things, so let's get that clear. My way, the right way, meaning that this is the way it should be, as opposed to this is the way I want it, which is subtle but important, because the should has a judgment, which then implies that if you're not that way, there's a problem. Like, if it's the way I want it to be, then, hey, I have that prerogative. I can say the way I want it. The fact that it might not work for you just means that we're not a match. It's an important subtlety, but I think if you haven't got that subtlety down, you're still in the codependency of trying to get other people to be different so that you feel less uncomfortable.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the right name for it. Is that it is a codependency, because you're trying to get someone else to satisfy the need that you, in your own development and maturation, are needing to grow into.
Beautiful. Norman, your friend Norman Christensen, is that right? Christensen?
Yeah. Yes.
But he said, in negotiating the truth with your partner, how do you discern it? And finding the truth, can that heal your heart? That's a heavy duty question, Norman. Because you brought in truth, right? So truth is like this. That's like a big boulder of a word.
Yeah, because there are multiple truths. There's the world as I see it.
Yeah.
Which is my experience of the world filtered through my collective, education, experience, social, economic, growth, like all those things that filter and allow me to see some things and not see other things. So I see it as my truth, but it's a slice, it's a thin slice. There's, the other person's same process. And then somewhere out there, there's objective reality, which really doesn't matter, but is something else other than, this and that. And, Harvard School of Negotiation says it's the third conversation or the third point of view, whatever.
I'd like to, if I could do a horribly difficult coaching, I'd like to say, Norman, throw out the word truth altogether in life and just say, this is my preference. Life gets a lot easier when you just say, I have these preferences and they're not for everybody. Because all of a sudden you don't need to defend yourself. You don't need to
negotiate.
You just say, this is kind of who I am and what I'm all about. And maybe it doesn't work for you.
It's called embracing yourself.
Is it embracing yourself? Yeah, it would be a bit. But I think it also, it deals, because I often find when the word truth comes up, and we've had our own shows on this in the past, of course, that we're dealing with, this is my truth and this is your truth. So all of a sudden it becomes a negotiation before we start anything, because we're already defining it that way.
Right. You're already defining it as a polarity.
Yeah, you're already defining
a dualism,
Yeah. So somehow I'd like rather live in the world of, this is just what I'd prefer. And I understand if you don't prefer it that way. And the consequence might be that we're not together, of course. Mm-hmm. That's I think the thing that people might not want to accept. Norman, thank you, Norman.
He bows. Right. But there's the other thing. It's not the consequence. It's the other part of what happens when you say that to each other in full acceptance. Like, this is just, what I've accepted about me and you accept about you, and like those are different. And isn't that beautiful that we can be in the same place?
Yeah.
And have two completely different experiences or preferences, and that allow the dynamic or the dynamism or whatever of those differences.
Yeah.
Like inclusion and diversity and cultural awareness isn't about where we're the same. Like you speak English and I speak English, but I don't speak Dutch, or but or that we both have blue eyes, or like it's really about like you're just different than me.
Yeah.
Like how wonderful that is, how beautiful that is. I don't want to be a woman. I mean, I have feminine, so-called what we would call feminine qualities. We talk a lot about that in the book. Like that. Traditionally we think of male as strong, powerful, hard, that kind of stuff. But, like our point is, if you don't understand that sack of stuff between your legs is extremely tender and soft, just get kicked there once, without a cup. You will realize how soft and tender that is. And by the way, that's the source of life. It's half of the source of life. Women don't have the whole thing on they create life. No, we create life too. So our creative spirit, comes from half of our genitals. It's the softness, it's the underbelly, it's the creative force. I don't have to claim femininity to say that that's soft and caring and receiving and gentle. That's a masculine characteristic to me.
Yeah. You were saying something that kind of, I was laughing, thinking of 20 conversations I've had with couples. I do a lot of couples counseling for some strange reason with COVID. And I remember
together. We can't escape.
There was a couple that was really it was divorce, pretty much. It was, it was going that way. And it was a funny moment when he was regressing to a very early age, 13. I knew it. I'd said at 13, he didn't know why I knew it was 13, but I just sort of thought that's what a 13-year-old does, right? It's easier to regress when it's like 16 or 17 because there's sort of more faculty to reason, right? When you go to 13, it's temper tantrum still a little bit. It just and so in the call with him, I kind of I hit the end of my rope, and I told her while he was there, I said, "Listen, you're dealing with a 13-year-old. Stop fucking treating him like an adult."
Yeah.
And he got so pissed off, right?
Yeah.
Because at his point, he was like, no one's because his whole wound was no one takes him seriously.
Right.
From 13 years old, that was the wound.
Right.
And so and now Andy, the guy he loves. I mean, we talk about love and he can't hate me because there's just too much love there, right? So it's doubly as painful to have it from the guy who you appreciate. And then after years of the struggle, all of a sudden he had to have his day debrief to just sort of kind of come back into his body again. But after that, he had his breakthrough because he made the love for the self-acceptance of the 13-year-old that he was always judging. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh wow, I don't need to defend that guy anymore. And it was really kind of funny. I had to get pushed to that point. I would never start there, but I got pushed there. No, I got to stop it. If this pattern stays, then there's no help anyways. Get divorced. Get divorced it was just amazing because as you spoke, what came up in me was that, and to some degree, if there isn't a degree of self-acceptance for who you are, then basically there's the old patterning that once triggered, you get into these reinforcing negative loops. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't make me go there, but that's part of what happens in the dark night, is that
Kris, if you start talking about the dark night, the viewership's going to go down.
We got 8 now. No, let him go. Let him go.
No, I'm just saying that's what happens is you come to grips with your shadow. And you either run away screaming into the night and never resolve that thing, or you embrace it.
Yeah.
And when you embrace it, what happens? It melts right into you and goes away. It's like you come to peace with that 13-year-old. You come to peace with the whatever it was, the tantrum or the thing that you hated yourself for all your life.
Yeah.
And you go and I think that the way you coach it, I'm a lousy public speaker and it's just fucking great, or, I'm no good at this and it's just okay. It's fine, learning to say that, I'm not good at that and I'm okay. And that's okay. That's wonderful. That's perfect.
Yeah.
What a great coaching. That's good.
We have Bolalong, who we haven't got a few comments from him, it doesn't think, in a while.
Bolalong
from South Africa. He's always commenting, as you know. When we are soft between our legs as men, we are not appreciated as when we are hard. Interesting. I'm talking about our lizard brain stuff.
As am I, Bolalong. There are 2 parts of what's between your legs. There's a soft part and a hard part. We're both. What we have to get, I think, is that we don't sacrifice the soft part with being all hard all the time. But we have to recognize that we do have that soft edge as well as the strong, hard side. And it's really it's the both end that is the power of masculinity. When Bambo says, I have to be my forceful self, my powerful self. That's his masculinity, but his emotional self, that's his. We would traditionally call that feminine. I kind of have trouble with those categories and descriptions anymore. But it's the both end.
I think one thing I've seen when I turned 50 or say 45, probably, I started to see, and we both used the paradox theory, with Harrison assessments as well, of course. Mm-hmm. I just started seeing the world in the paradox of the masculine and the feminine and how those two are actually synergistic and not necessarily
opposites.
Opposites.
Yeah.
And I think at some point it doesn't become a concept. Like when you look at a yin yang symbol as a kid, it looks just nice. It's intriguing.
Right.
And then you're like, wow, there's like symbolism in there that I equate with an experience I'm having. Like that's another level. And then it's like you see, oh shit, everything I see in the world can kind of be explained from this simple image, which was just a nice thing when I was young, but now has all of this meaning, which is so packed that it clarifies so much. And yet, if I try to explain it to another person, they'll say you're insane. It's just a damn image. What are you making so much out of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And note that the full image isn't just the black and the white, things around it, but there's a dot inside each one of those. Yeah. That's the other color.
Yeah. So and that's the beauty of it, right? Those dots.
Yes, that's the beauty of it. It's the both.
How does the feminine, or whatever the word you want to use, live inside of the masculine live inside of that feminine?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
that I think
not in androgyny.
Yeah.
It's not that we are genderless or featureless or, same. It's that we're both we're all,
I think in that sense of because in a way when we're talking, when your sensual way of experiencing the world, when I'm in that sensual way of experiencing the world, a lot of times I'm feeling into where is the competition inside of myself right now. So with the book launch, I was very much in this determined brain, very much focused, organizing, getting shit done.
Up and hard.
Up and hard. And then I'm starting, where is like the meaning and the feeling of connectedness and the love and the purpose? Because in a weird way, the purpose also goes away the more you get lost in to-do lists, because you lose the reason you're doing it. You're just doing shit without necessarily connecting to that. And it was interesting to go through that process and feel myself moving through that and like moving into a little bit too far into the doing section. And now I do the flip. So then I go into now I don't want to do anything for a while because I don't manage myself well. So I go back to nothing.
There was a beautiful moment when you were holding the box of books and you almost filled up with tears, where you were no longer in the thrust of getting it done, but in the receiving of, all of me and all those stories, and something, came inside you. And there was just that moment there where the two came together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Reminds me of yesterday's talk.
I don't know what the talk was.
Surrender.
Oh, yesterday, we did surrender talk. Second time doing it, because that is a subject that comes up so often.
It's so relevant to everything.
Yeah. So what's the next show going to be, Kris?
Where are we? Oh, crap. How do we do that? We've only been talking for 10 minutes, haven't we?
It always feels that way when we have you on the show. And I'm always thinking to myself,
that's me.
So what do we plan out for the next topic?
We have 2 shows, right?
What do you mean we have 2 shows?
With Kris.
This is the 3rd show with Kris.
I know, but we can do, I thought you made notes of the things we discussed in the beginning.
Oh, you thought that? No, I think he's got more interesting things to pull out of his bag of tricks.
But
that too.
I mean, the fact that he wrote a book that we didn't know about until 2 talks was already pretty fascinating.
Well, I actually have 5 books, but that's okay.
Oh, okay, great. Well, just drop that in there,
just throw that in there, on Amazon.com. You can go there.
Very nice. Anything you'd like to share? Because we have a few minutes, and we've been asking and driving a lot of the dialogue. So, is there anything you would actually like to share?
I think it's the dance. That relationship is a dance, and I don't know anything about homosexual relationships. But I imagine them. A gay friend, he passed away a while back, but he was in a long time committed marriage, and he said, the dance of masculine and masculine is the most amazing thing in the world. to learn how to find each of us in our masculinity. He said, I don't fall in love with the masculine because I like the feminine side of it. I love masculinity. And so.
But slow that down a bit, because I'm trying to. So, he said to you the dance of masculine and masculine.
And masculine, yeah. So
help me understand, what did he mean when he said that?
Well, so I think there's a mythos about homosexual male relationships, and I'm not talking about gay, lesbian, but there's and maybe there's the same myth about them, that one takes the dominant role, one takes the passive
submissive
role,
yeah,
right? The submissive role. In Bruce's relationship, there was no submissive. There were two men, and they were both very present and very clear about their masculinity. And so, and they were deeply in love with each other, and really valuing of each other. And he was saying, that dance was mysterious to him. It was just beautiful to him, the dance of masculine and masculine. You might look at, for example, a wrestling match or a rugby game or something where the masculine and masculine dance together in a very competitive way, but, they did it in a very loving way. So for me, in relationship, marriage, or whatever, and I only relate to it from a heterosexual monogamous relationship, that dance, the dynamic of allowing each other to grow and mature, takes so many different forms as it goes. It's such a beautiful undulation. And I remember Katerina, the ice skater whose husband died. She was a very tiny skater, and she ended up being a solo skater. But she and her husband were the couples, the dance pairs, Olympic champion, like 3 Olympics in a row or something like that. Yeah. And then he died of a heart attack. But the two of them together, he was such a big, strong, powerful man. And she was so beautiful and lithe and small. I mean, she was literally, here on him. But the dance of the two of them together was so beautiful. But anyway, the point of that was that marriage and relationship is a dance. Sometimes it's a tango, sometimes it's a waltz, sometimes it's just boogie woogie, and it has to be able to express all those different ways, so if you try to waltz while your partner's doing the boogie, it's going to look awkward. So we have to meet each other, out beyond the field of rightness and wrongness. There is a place, I will meet you there, said Rumi.
I'd like to end the show by singing a song to Bambos. It's South Pacific. It's called Some Enchanted Evening.
Please don't.
Yeah.
Some enchanted evening, you will meet a stranger. You will meet a stranger across a crowded room.
Gentlemen, I love you. Goodbye.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye, Kris.
It's a wonderful chaos. We like it that way.